Well, the truth's finally coming out about Game Pass, at least from the developer side, because new comments are starting to make the rounds from a couple of different sources that don't exactly paint a glowing picture of Game Pass now and then also in the past. I mean, we have seen quite a bit of stuff happening at Microsoft now that appears to show them pivoting away from their original plan of mostly just relying on a subscription service that's kind of like Netflix, but then also steering into the world of games that, to me, is still a lot different than just sitting down and watching a 2-hour movie or a show from your favorite series. But we'll go over exactly what's being said and, to me, what the future looks like right now for Game Pass and Xbox. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. So let's head over here. This is Windows Central. Jez Corden had a whole write-up, but he also was kind enough to transcribe what Jason Schreier said over on his Triple Click podcast, where he was talking about some of the stuff happening behind the scenes at Microsoft with Xbox, and it has been all over the place. Stuff is happening pretty much constantly, and it does fall in line with what Asha Sharma said would be about a 100-day reset. That is an absolute speed run in the world of business, especially for a company the size of Microsoft, but also just the size of Xbox. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there, and it seems like they are making pretty consistent changes and, yes, cutbacks across the board. So this, according to Jason Schreier, is what some of the people within Xbox are saying and kind of viewing Game Pass as, saying there are a lot of people out there in studio leadership within Xbox who absolutely detest Game Pass. They think it has destroyed the value of their games, think it has taken away the value from all games in general, and has been a detriment to the games industry in those people's view because of how it devalues games. Now, when you think about Game Pass in general, it does kind of promote the idea that games aren't necessarily 60 or 70 bucks. They are press a button, download, and start playing, which means, yes, you are more likely to bounce off of games just outright. I mean, it really is kind of a buffet setup there, which, I mean, it's good for value because if you're someone who's subscribing for a month, and I'm thinking back when they first showed up and it was $10 a month. That's a pretty good value. Some people would get like the $1 deal where it was literally $1 to subscribe to Game Pass, and you'd have 30 days just kind of explore the service. And it's not the size that it is now, right? It's much smaller then because they've built up a library of games over the last couple of years, but there was still a pretty substantial amount there for $1. And even so, when they went up to $15 per month, I mean, yeah, you're going up in terms of pricing each month, but there was still a lot of stuff that had been building, and we were on the course of the day one releases going in. But day one releases going in that aren't full price, it does work to, yes, kind of train the audience to not expect to buy the different games that come out, instead just to download them, try them, and if you don't like it, move on. And the way that they had been positioning Game Pass, the idea was kind of to be a supplement to also buying games, but as we've seen, it hasn't really shaken out that way. I mean, it seems like they have plateaued in terms of the number of Game Pass subscribers to the point where they actually started to fall a bit when they got to what I think was a breaking point in terms of pricing for the subscription service at $30 per month. Yes, that's the ultimate tier, but it's still, that's substantial. That's something you think about. It's not the almost impulse buy, kind of forget about it amount of $10 per month. I mean, you're 3 times that, right? And when you do the math, you would have to buy like 4 or 5 games for it to equal that amount. And many people do not buy 4 or 5 full-priced games like 70 bucks each year. They pick and choose and they look for sales. That's kind of how it's always worked. So Game Pass started to get away from its initial value of, oh, it's $120 a year. And if I honestly play 2 games, you're actually making out in that whole situation. No longer the case, though. But along with this, Jez Corden did ask some of his own sources. So we have Jason Schreier and then Jez Corden over on Windows Central, where he says, speaking to a former Xbox studio lead, they were pretty upfront about echoing what Schreier reported. Giving games away for free in Game Pass from day one sends a message to consumers that the games don't have inherent market value. It almost creates an assumption that these titles could not sell on their own. It felt like a race to zero. I asked another former Xbox lead with intimate knowledge of the Game Pass strategy previously, who explained the idea around the whole platform was to offer core games a stable revenue stream, as many core users increasingly opt for free-to-play titles or wait for deep cuts in sales, such as those often found on Steam. And yeah, that's kind of how the mainstream consumer with gaming works. Gaming has become more and more of a social experience over anything. Yes, single-player games still sell. People play them constantly. But it's tough to stand up to the live service multiplayer sector, right, with some of these single-player games that come out. Because, as also being described here, there is a formula, an equation within Microsoft for Game Pass, depending on, okay, it makes more sense to invest in this studio in this game versus this studio in this project that they're incubating right now because, it's a 10-hour single-player experience. Well, this studio is making a never-ending multiplayer-like experience. I wonder which one we should go with to hold up a subscription service that we want to be like month over month, year over year for our audience. While we talk about Sony having that chase for the Fortnite always-on game, Microsoft also chases the live service sector. I will say I think Microsoft is better at it, but they also do buy games like Minecraft that were already good at it, and then Call of Duty as well. And I know Call of Duty has fallen a bit with something like Black Ops 7, but they show up with Black Ops 1 and 2 on PlayStation, and it goes absolutely crazy, So Call of Duty still has the pull, is what I'm saying here. People do play that pretty much constantly on Xbox. If you look at the most popular games on the Xbox tab, it's what you'd expect, It's like your Fortnites and your Call of Duties and Apex Legends and Marvel Rivals. And in fact, they also link to Matt Piscatella, put up this is like the engagement or just the time spent playing games, right? And so with this in mind, you can see even US Steam has Mecha Chameleon, which I didn't realize. I've been calling it Mecha Chameleon. Apparently it is pronounced Mecha Chameleon. So I guess because it's Japanese developer and it's supposed to be pronounced Mecha. So okay, Mecha Chameleon is number one. So hey, good for them. That's a smaller title, and it actually jumped ahead of Counter-Strike 2, which is kind of crazy, but hey, good for them. Okay, so then we have US PlayStation, US Xbox. All right. I was mostly interested in US Xbox, of course, because of Game Pass, and look what's number one, it's Fortnite, and then, Roblox, Call of Duty, Forza Horizon 6, which actually that's a good one for Microsoft because it's, first-party game. It's what they're looking for to hold up Game Pass, high-quality title, great. And then Minecraft, Grand Theft Auto 5, NBA 2K26, Escape the Backrooms, interesting, I don't know if that's because of, the movie that had come out, and then Rainbow Six Siege, and then Where Winds Meet. So you can kind of see, looking up and down this, more than half of the list, honestly like 75%, are those forever live service games, which means there's just less time for any of these other games that come out. And that's the thing that if you really consider the fact with Game Pass, it is measured more on time than money. And most people are spending their time in Fortnite. And that's why when you see Game Pass Ultimate go up to $30, and what are they trying to push to make it feel like it's worth the money? There's a Fortnite pass in there because they're trying to tap into this mainstream audience that, to be honest with Microsoft, is not interested in subscribing to Game Pass. That's just it. You wouldn't even need Xbox Live or PlayStation Plus to play Fortnite. As long as you have the system, you can hop on and play at no charge at all there. So with that in mind, Microsoft seems to be pivoting away from Game Pass. At least that's the read I'm getting here. And I think what they'll end up doing is removing day one games from Game Pass. And I think they're going to try to get the whole thing cheaper. So like if you look at, this is the current tier setup for Game Pass. It's 10, 15, 23, and then 14. That's for PC only. And I think what they need to do is get something like Ultimate down to 15. Like I think that should be their most expensive tier. And Essential is fine. It's like a smaller group of games, but the thing I think it's going to be really like a real sticking point for Microsoft, they need to get rid of the pay to play online aspect. Because if they're going to merge Xbox and PC together, you're just not going to get PC players to pay to play online. That is not a thing. And if you do want the console or the whatever Helix ends up being to be in line with PC, you really can't be paying to play online. So they will have to rely on Game Pass from a content standpoint. And that's why I think they can still pull it off with something like 15 a month, but just an overwhelming amount of games. Like, that's the biggest thing. A lot of content to pull from, a lot of reasons to subscribe for different titles to try out, but not because you're locked in so you can play online. I mean, if you really think about it, I just said Fortnite is the most popular game, Roblox, on Xbox. You don't have to have a Game Pass or Xbox Live subscription to play them. So, that's the thing. It's a benefit for Microsoft to do that in terms of competition against someone like PlayStation. So I think that is a good move for them to go that route as they merge PC and their Xbox system together. So there was also this interview that was taking place, and this was with Matthew Ball, Matthew Ball, and then Matt Booty. They were talking about specifically exclusives. And the thing that I noticed here is they are indeed doubling down, tripling down, you could say, on the idea that these are, like, the games they've announced as exclusives are not timed exclusives, okay? He says, I can assure you, Gears of War E-Day and Clockwork Revolution are not the only titles we're planning, that being for exclusivity. To grow a platform like ours, you have to have exclusive games and services. These are not going to be the only two titles. Now, they also kind of talk about how it is also still case-by-case basis, and it's just because they have so many IPs and they control, like, Call of Duty, Minecraft. You kind of get the idea. Even Bethesda, while they are looking to do a lot of different things, as they've announced that leading into the weekend, there are a lot of games in there that I look at and go, you know what, I actually wouldn't be surprised if that was multi-platform, like a Fallout New Vegas remaster. It's like, yeah, it's a remaster. The game already exists on other platforms. We just kind of want to push it out there and just make some extra money that way, because the Game Pass formula of allowing people to just download games on the subscription service, while again, it's great for consumers, and for the most part, it's not the consumer's problem to make the numbers work on the whiteboard when they're drawing it up. There is something to the idea that Microsoft still needs to figure out how to be a functioning business when the numbers do have to at least somewhat add up. And so with that in mind, that's why you see games go to other platforms, because Game Pass doesn't exist there, and like on Switch or Switch 2 and then on PlayStation 5, and they can work to get some extra revenue there to then fund some of these studios that, well, their bonuses a lot of times do rely on actually making money. So there's an interesting thing that Microsoft will have to do now, and that is kind of retrain their audience on Xbox and then kind of on PC to buy games again, like consistently. And I am very curious to see how they make that work outside of, as Matthew Ball says, exclusives being attached to their brand, and then those games not going into Game Pass. But then Game Pass getting cheaper, maybe to retain more and more people. When they went up to $30 per month, they lost, I think, like 4 or 5 million subscribers. Like, they lost a fair amount. And when they then went down to $23 per month, apparently they gained a few subscribers. That's just the way it works. It gets cheaper, people become more interested. So again, going down to something like 15, even 10, and just keep cutting back on a lot of the benefits, find that nice middle ground you can sit at, but then also be able to still sell some of those games over time with big exclusives that don't drop constantly. Because you don't have to feed Game Pass like every month, you can take some time and release pillar games and then allow your third parties to come in and fill in some of those gaps otherwise. And then you have some fun drops into Game Pass, like little third-party indie titles, things like that, or even some smaller first-party games, just to keep people invested there as well. It's going to be a balancing act, and I'm very intrigued to see if they can pull it off, because Asha Sharma, I will give her credit, she seems pretty serious, and she seems pretty straightforward. Like, when you go to Bethesda and look around and go, why aren't you guys making Fallout? Let's do a lot of Fallout and let's tell everyone. It kind of makes sense, right? So it's kind of no nonsense is what I'm getting from her with this whole thing. And that tends to be what happens when maybe you have someone comes in who's not a big gamer and is more so looking at the numbers as opposed to, I guess, Game Pass and engagement hours. It's like, how do we make money here? So still a lot of questions on how this reset is going to go and how they'll be able to reform their ecosystem. But that, to me, is going to be their strategy going forward. Less reliance on Game Pass, more reliance on, it seems like, exclusive big releases to get people buying games again at a consistent clip. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below, with developers being a bit more candid and even opening up, it seems like, to people like Jason Schreier and Jez Corden about how they really didn't like Game Pass much at all. The truth, it seems to come out now, but let Let me know your guys' thoughts on that one in the comments. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.